Bound Jensen, if you're trying to get over towards the Ship Channel Bridge area. Also, 290s HOV Huffmeister, they cleared one.
Support comes from Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods, Texas family owned and operated since 1962, offering wine, spirits, and gourmet bites, including whiskey pecan pie for the Thanksgiving holiday. SpecsOnline.com. The fun starts here.
Low 80s for the high today. Chance of rain today and the next few days. We're going to stay in the low to mid 90s and then 80s, that is. And then the lows are right around 70, a 60% chance of rain for Monday as well. We're at 71 degrees. Listen anywhere. We're streaming live online. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7. A service of the University of Houston. Houston Matters starts right now, 9 o'clock. Stick around.
For decades, Texas transportation priorities have favored drivers as projects add and widen lanes and try to keep up with a growing population. Might that soon change? I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, what a recent draft report from TxDOT suggests.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, why the city of Houston's establishing a curfew for scooters, who it applies to and where. Then, what's behind Humble ISD's decision to establish a school marshal program, allowing trained staff to carry guns at school. Plus, we talk with the author of the new book, Lost Treasures of Houston, and ask you what places and experiences Houston used to have that you consider lost treasures. We'll start with the news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Stocks opened sharply higher this morning after strong earnings from NVIDIA and a report showing employers added more jobs than expected in September. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped about 670 points in early trading.
The jobs report, which was held up for nearly 7 weeks by the government shutdown, shows employers added 119,000 jobs in September, but job gains for the 2 previous months were revised down. September hiring was mixed, with bars and restaurants and hospitals adding workers while factories and warehouses cut back. Stock in computer chip maker NVIDIA jumped this morning after another blockbuster earnings report. The company is considered a bellwether of the boom in artificial intelligence. And sales of existing homes inched up in October. The National Association of Realtors says the average sales price during the month was just over $415,000. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Some lawmakers in the House are considering whether to impose a ban on stock trading by members of Congress. The House Administration Committee held a hearing yesterday. One witness was Dan Savickas of the group Taxpayers Protection Alliance. He cited public data that show several dozen lawmakers had stock performances that beat the S&P 500 index last year.
This is not limited to one political party or another. On average, members of both political parties outperformed the market. Additionally, each party's performance gets a boost when they control more branches of government. This only lends further credence to the public perception that congressional representatives are using their office for personal gain rather than public service.
Some lawmakers say they will push forward with a proposed ban on congressional stock trading. President Trump says he has signed the bill to compel the Justice Department to publish all files on late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The agency will redact names of victims and information about ongoing investigations. Trump's calling for probes of high-profile Democrats who had ties to Epstein. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has made a dramatic shift in the agency's position on the relationship between vaccines and autism. NPR's Rob Stein has more.
The CDC's website now says a link between vaccines and autism cannot be ruled out. That's a sharp reversal from the CDC's stance that there is no link. The change comes even though a connection between vaccines and autism has long been debunked by a large body of high-quality research. But Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has long promoted the discredited claim. The CDC's change is alarming public health experts. They are already worried about a drop in childhood vaccination, which has led to a resurgence of dangerous childhood diseases like measles and whooping cough. Rob Stein, NPR News.
This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards of public service in journalism and cultural expression.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. The holiday travel season kicks off today at Bush Intercontinental Airport. News 88.7's Tom Perumian spoke earlier today to a United spokesperson about how the carrier is prepared, and he joins me live now. Good morning, Tom.
And good morning, Matt. That's right. Earlier this morning, we talked with Daniel Reed, Director of Station Operations at Bush, about the United app helping travelers navigate their way to and from flights.
I would just recommend to all of our customers and to our travelers to use the United app to facilitate their travel. It helps give them tips and tricks on the fastest and best way to navigate through the airport. It allows you to reaccommodate yourself to book rides to and from airports.
Reed says United is working with TSA agents to ensure smooth operations at checkpoints and with flight control to keep aircraft moving smoothly and safely during this crush time. Matt?
All right, Tom, the recommendation is to get to the airport about 2 hours early this holiday season for domestic flights. Galveston ISD says it will not change its stance on displaying 10 Commandment posters in classrooms. This comes 2 weeks after Attorney General Ken Paxton sued the district for its decision not to display the posters. Our Juliana Washburn reports.
Galveston ISD says it finds that Senate Bill 10 conflicts with long-standing federal law and existing interpretations of the Constitution.
We are disappointed we must use district resources to defend this local decision against state action.
The United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit plans to take up the subject in January. Until then, Galveston ISD says it'll continue to seek legal counsel and navigate next steps in light of other ongoing litigation. From the Galveston County Bureau, I'm Juliana Washburn, News 88.7.
And the Houston Independent School District is launching a private version of ChatGPT. That's the breakthrough artificial intelligence online searching technology that has risen to prominence recently. Multiple outlets report that it's called HISD Secure Workspace and was built through a partnership with OpenAI, which created ChatGPT. District officials say that the AI will not write lessons or generate curriculum. Rather, it will do other things to save time, like draft emails, create templates, and organize documents. For more news, you can head to our website. That, of course, is HoustonPublicMedia.org. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Coming up this hour, why TxDOT wants more mass transit. We recall lost treasures of Houston, and we visit an annual celebration of rocks, gems, and minerals here in town. First, though, Houston City Council Wednesday established a curfew for micromobility devices across the city. What's that, you ask? Well, let's find out from Houston Public Media's Dominic Anthony Walsh. Dominic, good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
This is citywide from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. What does it cover?
Well, it's interesting because this conversation initially started with a focus on e-scooters in the downtown, midtown, and east downtown area. But what they ended up enacting is a citywide curfew on electric and foot-powered scooters. It also bans rentals from tents and other temporary structures, basically pop-up vendors that would rent out electric scooters. They won't be able to do that anymore, and the brick-and-mortar structures will be limited and not able to rent out from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Are there any exemptions to this?
Yeah, personally owned vehicles are exempt from the curfew for certain commuting purposes, like going directly from home to work or school and back. The regulations do appear to prohibit any detours or other trips from the commute, like riding to a restaurant or store in those hours at night.
I wonder how they're going to track that other than just stopping people and asking, are you going straight home? Are you going straight to school? And so forth. This is, as you said, the less than what was originally proposed. Right?
Yeah, that initial proposal focused on the central urban core, called for a full ban at all hours, and that would have shut down the busiest vendors. A coalition of scooter rental companies came together to oppose that ban, but this curfew still covers the busiest hours for the rental industry.
And why has it been enacted?
Yeah, Mayor John Whitmire argued yesterday that scooters represent one of our number one security risks in the city right now due to unsafe operation on sidewalks and streets. Councilmember Joaquin Martinez, who represents the downtown area, says they've seen a lot of joyriding in that area and it's brought a dangerous environment to into downtown. They say they've heard from residents and visitors that area, especially around Discovery Green, has become hazardous for pedestrians just because of the number of scooters riding around at night. It's really focused on safety.
Do the stats back this up? I mean, are they right? Is this a safety and security hazard?
Yeah, so the city posted data with this agenda item, and according to that data, from 2021 through 2025, 51 riders received citations, about 3,000 received warnings, a handful of guns were seized, and less than 10 people were arrested. Now, to put that in perspective, according to that coalition of scooter rental companies, total rentals across those three leading vendors soared from about 86,000 in 2021 to more than 176,000 in 2024. So the data from the city represents a fraction of those total rentals. But city officials have also talked about anecdotal complaints from residents and visitors who, like we said, have trouble walking on sidewalks.
And what do folks in the scooter rental industry have to say about all of this?
Interestingly, they've been reluctant to weigh in this week, but they previously told me that a nighttime curfew would negatively impact their business because, again, that is their busiest time. Abe Levitz, co-owner of scooter rental business E-Ride, we talked in August, and when we brought up the nighttime curfew idea, he said that's technically the safest time to operate because there's less cars on the road, there's less pedestrians. Now, that said, they are most likely relieved to see this walked back from a full ban, which would have effectively shut down their businesses.
This is a little bit of inside baseball, but there was initially some opposition from Councilmember Ramirez, who wanted to delay the vote. What changed his mind?
Yeah, there was this tense exchange between Councilmember Ramirez, Whitmire, and other members of council. Ramirez said he supported the revised proposal, but he and residents didn't have access to the details until Friday. He said that wasn't enough time for adequate public engagement. He threatened to tag the item, which would delay it until the next meeting. And in a very rare move, Councilmember Martinez said that he would introduce a motion to override the tag. Now, this is significant just because council members don't really do that to each other at all in terms of overriding each other's delays. After a 15-minute recess, Ramirez withdrew the tag with the understanding that a committee meeting would be held in early December for further public engagement. And he ultimately voted for the curfew, along with 11 other council members and the mayor.
How does this ordinance then fit into Houston's approach to urban transportation and street safety, especially given the city's ongoing efforts to improve walkability downtown?
Well, when it comes to infrastructure, the main walkability initiative downtown right now is focused narrowly on a 7-block stretch on Main Street, which is going to be a pedestrian-only walkway along the Red Line. That's coming ahead of the World Cup next year. Some have drawn parallels between the mayor's skepticism of dedicated facilities for bikes along roads, basically arguing he's opposed to anything that isn't a car. But in this case, there was much more of a consensus on the council and with the mayor that the scooters are actually posing a safety risk to pedestrians due to some of the specific activity in the downtown area that we talked about, especially around Discovery Green.
All right, so maybe the mayor's not too terribly concerned about cars being a threat to pedestrians, but the scooters, perhaps.
Some have made that argument.
Houston Public Media's Dominic Anthony Walsh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Humble ISD has become one of 8 Texas school districts to adopt the school marshal program this year. It allows trained employees to carry handguns on campus. The controversial decision passed with a 6-1 school board vote despite concerns from parents about asking too much of educators. News 88.7's Bianca Seward's been reporting on this and joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
What sort of training do employees who want to carry a weapon, what do they receive before they're allowed to do so?
Yeah, there's a number of steps that they have to complete before they're able to be certified to do this on a school campus. They have to complete 80 hours of training in Austin with the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement. That's going to be reviewing different kind of strategies from law enforcement, how to respond to a situation with deadly force, tips about managing school safety and student safety during a school shooting. Additionally, they'll have some practice with the firearm and be kind of trained on that simulation level. So there's classroom and there's in the field instruction. They'll also have to pass a psychological exam. It's an L3 exam, which is similar to the exam that they give to peace officers or county jailers. So a lot of the same kind of steps that those lower level law enforcement officers also have to receive. And that's a test that measures two things: personality traits as well as emotional fitness to, handle themselves around a weapon during those dangerous times.
Are these teachers or other staff? Is it clear?
It does include teachers. It's open to teachers. I should be clear about that. And the vice president of the school board, Michael Grabowski, tried to underscore that a number of times at the meeting, that the program is voluntary. There seems to be a little bit of public misconception that it would require teachers to have a gun in their classroom. That's not exactly how the program works. It's open to a teacher that has a separate a license to carry a firearm who wants to volunteer for this program, complete the 80 hours of training, pass a psychological exam, and then be chosen as a person to be a school marshal on campus. So it's not exactly it's definitely not a requirement. It's a little bit more of a volunteer. And Grabowski said at the meeting that if there were no volunteers, then they would not have any school marshals.
Why did Humble ISD decide to adopt this?
Yeah, they didn't point to any specific incident that recently happened in Humble to underscore why they needed the program. They had described it as an added layer of security for the schools, and that's kind of how they left it.
Have they established any goals do they want a certain number of teachers and staff to do this?
They haven't set any numbers for themselves. They're going to move very slowly with this. They've basically voted to develop the program themselves, and it's going to roll out over 10 to 12 months. And I will add that unique to Humble, they're going to add other certifications on top of what's required by the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement. So outside of that training that we just talked about, Humble says that they're going to require separate training with their Humble ISD Police Chief Cook. And the certification in Humble will be every 3 to 6 months. It's not as frequent by the state.
As I said, this is one of 8 school districts across the state that's doing this, and not very many that have. Have we gotten any sense of how effective the program's been at those other districts?
It's actually one of 8 districts that have adopted it this year. But I do want to underscore that participation in the program is relatively low. There's 1,200 school districts, more than 1,200 school districts across the state. And the program's been running for 12 years. They've only ever certified 156 districts. And current districts with active participation is down to 109. So it has incredibly low participation across the state. There are a number of other programs that school districts can choose to do in terms of finding armed security for their campuses. A couple years ago, we know the legislature passed a law that required them to have some sort of armed security presence. Participation is really low. The program itself has only certified 900, something like 900, almost 1,000 school marshals in general. And again, active certifications, it's down to 650.
What have parents had to say about this?
There were a number of concerned parents at the school board meeting. They cited things concerning whether it placed too much responsibility on teachers. And that may be a little bit misleading since it is a voluntary program. But there were also concerns about why the need for this kind of program. They have a separate ISD police force, which when I asked Texas Commission of Law Enforcement why some of these districts have dropped out, they had elected to go with an ISD police team instead of the school marshal program. So it begs the question as to why Humble feels the need to add this layer of security since they already have a robust police presence.
Is there any data to back up whether or not this particular program works?
There's minimal data to suggest that it's effective or even ineffective. When I asked a spokesperson with the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement about its effectiveness, they did want to say that it's difficult to track things that are prevented, things that don't happen, right? But there is no recorded instance of a school marshal through this program using their weapon to prevent an incident. So we have not yet seen that story of it working.
Does this cost Humble ISD anything to do?
The cost of the districts is almost nothing. The legislature appropriates about $600,000 a year to the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement to run the program, to pay for the training, to pay for the psych exam courses. Participants who want to go through the training have to pay their own travel costs, and that's pretty much it.
Houston Public Media's Bianca Seward, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, why TxDOT's advocating for more buses and trains across Texas, and not just in big cities like Houston. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
youthful friends, an exhibit fostering connection, curiosity, understanding, and friendship. Families explore other cultures through the eyes of Houston kids. More at cmhouston.org.
Support comes from Mercury Chamber Orchestra, presenting Bach Christmas Oratorio, the story of the Nativity told through music, December 13th. And on December 18th through 21st, an Italian Baroque Christmas. MercuryHouston.org.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Earlier this month, the Texas Department of Transportation held a public meeting here in Houston on a subject that may, on the surface, come as a bit of a surprise. The state agency that builds our highways is calling for improvements in public transit, including rail, and not just in Houston and other big cities, but in rural and suburban spaces as well. To learn more about TxDOT's statewide multimodal transit plan, Houston Matters producer Joshua Zinn spoke with Adam Hammons. He's Media Relations Director for TxDOT, and he discusses the goals and expectations for improving transit around the state.
So the goal really is to meet the demands of the future, right? We have a growing state, a growing economy, and we need to find ways to meet that demand. And so this is what that really is. We really need to look at what are the gaps, where are we at now? That way we can plan for the future. That way we can be prepared for the next 30 years, because we're gonna have a lot of demand on our roadways. You may be familiar with the Connecting Texas 2050 long-range transportation plan, and this is kind of a subsidiary of that.
You talk about gaps. So what are the gaps that exist, and what are some of the proposals that are being considered to more or less fill those gaps as part of this plan?
Yeah, so there are a number of things. We've got a growing population, a lot of people moving into our cities, but that also moves people out of our cities. So what that does is it puts a little more demand on our rural areas, right? And so our rural transit agencies, they're wonderful agencies. They do a lot of really great work, and they're kind of a lifeline for a lot of people who live out there, and they're the only ways they can get around. But they can't quite meet the demand of that growing population. So we need to be able to look at, okay, how can we build out that increased service, whether that might be increase in facilities out there, increase in hours of operation, more routes going. We're looking into all of those options to see how we can meet that demand.
What exactly could this entail? I know a lot of this is kind of hypothetical, and you're sort of thinking, okay, what are ways we can tackle this? But is this just simply bus transit? Are you thinking about trains? Are you thinking about other modes? Like, what does this encompass, really?
Yeah, this is all encompassing. This is all options for multimodal transit plan. There's a lot of transit in Texas. We've got a very extensive ferry operation at TxDOT. We've got that rural transit agencies. We have general aviation. We've got those larger transit networks in the cities. We've got small urban, large urban transit networks. And so it's all of those working together with our transportation system and working on that as a whole and see how we can give everyone options to get where they need to go safely and efficiently over the next 30 years. And what I really like to say about this plan is that it is a Texas plan, not a TxDOT plan. And so what that means is we really collaborated extensively with everyone throughout the entire state, whether that's transit users, whether that's cities, counties, transit organizations, whoever that might be, whoever's involved in transit. We wanted their input into this plan. So it's all of us working together to see how we can improve transit over the next 30 years, because we really wanted to make sure that we have everyone's input and make sure we can have that good plan as we go into the future.
So what are the expectations for actually executing on this, and what kind of timeline is TxDOT looking at in order to make this happen and to make this all work for the state?
Yeah, so we're going to have this draft plan. We're going to finalize it. It should go to our commission sometime over the next couple of months. And once we get that finalized, and then we keep that conversation going, right? This is an ongoing thing. TxDOT is taking the lead on this, but again, this is a Texas plan, not a TxDOT plan. We're working together on this. So over the next 30 years, short-term, long-term, whatever it might be, we're going to keep that conversation going. and see what we can do in the short term and the long term to build out transit and follow this plan as we go along.
People have until the end of the day today to make their voices heard about this, share their opinions, their thoughts. How can people do that?
Yeah, we have a public involvement page on TxDOT.gov, and you can leave a comment, you can send an email. There's also a recording of our public meetings on that page, and you can look through those public meetings and answer your own questions on the plan. You can also look through the draft plan yourself. It's really nice to kind of go through everything and see what all is entailed. It's not overly complicated. You can really kind of dive down into it. It's really interesting. And so you can give us a voicemail, send us a text, send us an email, whatever it may be. All that information is on TxDOT.gov. Please let us know. It really helps us incorporate that plan and make sure it's for everyone at Texas when that's finalized.
TxDOT's Adam Hammons talking with Houston Matters producer Joshua Zinn. To consider how this statewide plan could affect us here in Greater Houston, we turn now to Mustafa Tameez, board member for the Transportation Advocacy Group Houston, and Dan Potter, director of the Houston Population Research Center at Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mustafa, let me start with you. What do you and TAG make of this recent draft report from TxDOT?
Well, we're very excited about it. Look, the TxDOT is, as I said, they're not looking to do everything, but they're looking to lead the conversation around the state. And having them speak on multimodal is critically important because in urban areas, we need to do more transit. In rural areas, we never talked about transit before, but as TxDOT's seeing it as the population ages, we're going to have solution to get them to resources that the rural populations need. So this is an exciting thing where TxDOT leading a conversation around transit.
Mustafa, where in Greater Houston would this be most significant, do you think?
Well, look, it's significant everywhere in Houston. As you drive around, you realize that we are in a congested city, and that's going to get even more congested. The Port of Houston expects to double in size in the next 8 years. And their bigger issue isn't bringing more ships in because they keep being able to do that and build capacity to do that. But how do we get the trucks and the freights outside of the port? So they're pushing very hard to do more road construction, to create more rail, to ship things out of the Port of Houston. And that affects our economy. It affects our quality of life. Every hour we spend on the road every week is an hour away from our family. So we've got to work together in the multimodal things that TxDOT's talked about to go after all of it.
Dan, you've researched Houstonians' attitudes towards just about everything, and that includes transportation. Do you find, based off of that research, that what TxDOT is proposing is something that, does it match Houstonians' attitudes about transit, about the ways they get from point A to point B?
Yeah, that anything we're doing to improve our public transportation is a step in the right direction. We, as a region, have pretty low ratings when we think about our public transportation. And so this plan, this idea of how do we expand and diversify our transportation options would be a welcome thing from Houston area residents.
Are attitudes about that any different than they were 5 or 10 or even 20 years ago?
So we've seen an uptick in the use of public transportation in the Houston area over the last couple of decades. If you look back at 2007, 2010 timeframe, you had less than 1 in 10 Houston area residents who were taking public transportation on a weekly basis, and now that's up to 1 in 8, and that differs by income level. And so for folks that are making on the lower end of the income spectrum, about 1 in 4 are using public transportation. And so it's become an increasing tool for residents to use to move about the area. And so again, like anything we can do that helps to improve how folks are able to move around is definitely welcomed. That's not to say we aren't still addicted to our cars in some ways, but again, there's a welcomed expansion to public transportation.
Yeah, so those numbers suggest 3 and 4 don't use them. Does that suggest to you that there is a chunk of the Houston population out there that is in favor of expansion of mass transit, just not for themselves?
So one of the things we've asked folks over time has had to do with, if our public transportation system was more responsive to your needs, would you take it? And there, what you see is somewhere up, upwards of almost 40% of area residents say yes, they would consider using public transportation if it was meeting their needs. Again, that's not everybody. And so we definitely have folks that are going to prefer to drive their vehicle from point A to point B. But that also speaks to, if you think about that, 1 in 8 versus, like 40%, 4 in 10 folks, sort of saying they would like to have public transportation. You're talking about a lot more people that are open to it if the option were available.
Dan Potter is director of the Houston Population Research Center at Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Mustafa Tameez is on the board of the Transportation Advocacy Group Houston. You can also hear him occasionally on our Friday conversation, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Gentlemen, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And just ahead, recalling lost treasures of Houston, those locations, landmarks, and experiences that are long gone but not forgotten. We welcome your examples at talk@houstonmatters.org or 713-440-8870. And stay with us as Houston Matters continues.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
909-0887.
My name is Michael Lawson, Houston Market President of St. Luke's Health, a member of Common Spirit Health. Access to quality information is vital for healthy communities to thrive. That's why St. Luke's Health is a proud supporter of Houston Public Media.
Support comes from Houston Symphony, inviting you to celebrate the season with festive concerts at Jones Hall. From carols to family favorites, the Symphony has everything to make your holidays unforgettable. Details at houstonsymphony.org.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Houston is a city, a metro area that changes fast, sometimes so fast that entire places, stories, pieces of our past disappear before we even realize it. Author Dylan Powell has made it his mission to track down those forgotten chapters. His book, Lost Treasures of Houston, uncovers the vanished landmarks, odd artifacts, and little-known tales that once helped shape the Bayou City, from defunct theme parks and historic neighborhoods to long-buried mysteries hiding in plain sight. Dylan Powell, welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir? Well said.
All right. Well, I'm well. We appreciate you joining us. As we chat, we welcome your suggestions of lost treasures of Houston. What are some places or experiences or legends even that used to be a part of the Houston experience that are now long gone? Let us know at 713-440-8870. You can reach out at talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also post questions and comments on our video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. You open your book, Dylan, by admitting that writing it made you sad. Why?
It did. In my mind, the city that I'm thinking I'm living in, and as I got older, I look around and the city around me, there was a growing gap. And you just think about all these amazing people and places, and it's kind of easy to get nostalgic and a little misty-eyed, if you think about it too long. So writing this book, I really wanted to help close that gap for people. And for those of us who've been in the city for a little while, say, hey, we too love Marvin's Inlet. We too love Astroworld. All these wonderful things. I'm with you. It's a collective pain, but we can celebrate those places. And for the newcomers, hey, let them know about all these great things that they missed out on. So
did that sadness eventually give way, like slime in the ice machine that gets cleaned up?
It did. And the actionable thing I took away from that is, if there's a treasure in your life today, if you really love that lunch spot, if you really appreciate that local celeb, you just have to savor them while you've got them. So there's something we can do here.
All right, so let's dive into some examples. I mean, you mentioned a couple right there, but I guess there are a variety of categories we could talk about. Let's start with food, favorite subject of mine. You cover, among other things, fine dining of the past. Can you give an example or two of lost fine dining treasures of Houston?
Oh, it's funny. When I talked about this book idea, everybody mentions Astroworld and some things, and then they just launch into 600 restaurants they used to love, complete
Right.
with their favorite entree. For me personally, when I think Houston fine dining, I still think Charlie's 517 down in Louisiana. Did you ever go to that place?
I've never been.
Oh, amazing classic French food, amazing wine list, and all of these things have a lifespan, and it had its as well. But man, that place was fantastic. Or Vargo's. I don't know if you ever went to Vargo's. A lot of people had wedding receptions, and they had all this land and live peacocks. I think some of those peacocks ended up around my house on the west side. But just some amazing fine dining establishments.
You mentioned popular dive bars in the book.
Oh yeah, so many dive bars. Let me tell you, that was one of my my litmus tests for having what to include in this book. It is, are people in a Facebook group talking about it 30 years later? So I will still see people around town with Power Tools t-shirts on. It's crazy.
Of course, if we talk about 30 years ago, the world was quite different. One way Houston was very different was that shopping malls were hopping 30 years and more ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you and I, we really lived through peak shopping malls. I don't know why we felt it was so urgent to buy like fingerless driving gloves at the Chess King, but somehow that was really important. Orange Julius. The ladies had the big crunchy hair. It was really a scene. So a lot of malls made the book. They really had their day. Just not a thing anymore. Driving home during the holiday shopping season. Now it's just Amazon trucks all the way. So definitely a bygone era.
That said, if I had a choice between the indoor shopping mall experience and the sort of outdoor restaurants and stores kind of landscape that we see in the burbs these days, I'll take the latter today.
I'm with you. Hey, you remember Westbury Square? That place was really ahead of its time as sort of a lifestyle center. They had like an old candle shop and an ice cream place, and it was a sort of an outdoor. I think the developer had brought in a fountain from, I want to say he actually brought it from Rome. But the malls came, they went, but there are fewer mosquitoes indoors.
What are some other key landmarks you might point to as definitively lost treasures of Houston?
Oh man, one that comes to mind is the Shamrock Hotel. What a grand thing that was. The launch party with the Hollywood celebrities, the color palette with 42 shades of green, water skiing in the giant swimming pool. Yeah, can you believe that such an amazing thing came and went? And these days, a lot of people might not have been aware. There's just so much. It's it's been an amazing ride.
There are so many different things that you could highlight in a book like this, probably more than you had room for, I imagine. How did you decide which treasures made the cut and which ones didn't?
It was tough. I thought I was going to have a problem finding things. I spent 2 months just talking to more than 50 people, researching down in the Texas room, just thinking back and going through family photos. But really a combination of impact and instinct is how I eventually made the decision. If I feel like collectively that thing being gone left a hole in Houston's psyche, it made the short list. But at the end of the day, I had to pare down a lot of things in the book, and actually photo availability was one of the big filters that I use, because these days we all have 4K video in our pocket. But if you're at a dive bar on Richmond Avenue in the 90s, unless you're being paid, you didn't have a camera. So sometimes it just came down to what I could find pictures of. And people were so generous about sharing their photos. I had a lot of pro photographers help me out. People with their family photos heard about the project and they wanted to help. Everybody was just so generous, but it was tough narrowing it down.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're talking with Dylan Powell, author of Lost Treasures of Houston. We welcome your examples of landmarks, locations, and legends that once were key to Houston's identity that are now long gone. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870 or talk@houstonmatters.org. One longtime Houstonian notes Castle Putt-Putt Golf, game room and bumper boats along the West Loop and Hempstead, which was torn down for the I-10 connector ramp freeway.
Yes. I included Malibu Grand Prix and some of those other places. So much fun. You could leave your children there and they're probably going to be okay. And still, that was also a peak arcade video game. So I actually picked up a few souvenirs along the way too, with some cool video game tokens from some of those places. It was an interesting time. It was an interesting time.
Houston's been known for near constant change. We build, we tear down, we rebuild, we reimagine who we are. Is that one reason maybe why there are so many lost treasures here? Is this a book that just is easier to put together here than would be in other cities?
I think so. I think that's a few reasons. One is just the growth. We're like shedding our exoskeleton every 10 years. I mean, and if it's slowing down, no one's told me. We're really just growing all the time here. And that just necessitates a lot of change. We're also, not opposed to making money in this city. If you have a favorite ice cream shop and the person who runs it owns the building and someone offers them money for a parking garage, you better hurry up and eat that mint chocolate chip because that thing is getting built. So.
We have a comment from someone on our YouTube channel, writes, my grandfather always talked about the Coombs Natatorium in the Heights. I would love to have seen it. Can you tell us anything about that?
Oh, I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one. Sounds really cool though. Did he say natatorium?
Yes.
Oh, that's really neat. I've only seen one of those in my life. Those were a little bit before my time, but I don't think I'm familiar with that one. It sounds awesome.
One of Houston's strengths, of course, is its diversity. How did you aim to capture that in this project?
It was tough. I mean, there are many Houstons for many people, and we're all a collective community, but, there are many ways to live here, and that's one of the really interesting things about this city, but boy, it was just a lot of breadth. It's easy to just write your experience through your lifetime, but, I really had to work out, and especially times that came before me, include all the cultures, all the different people. It was tough, to get out of your own headspace and have a say for all Houstonians. But hopefully I did it some justice.
Conversations about what we've lost here in Houston inevitably circle around to the Astrodome. Do you consider that, since it is still technically standing, still at least the outer structure is there, is it lost or is it something else?
Bless its heart. I struggled with that one so much. Putting it down as categorically lost somehow is condemning it, but, poor old dear. I went and took some photos of it. Actually, before this book, I thought about doing a book of abandoned buildings and kind of went and did some photos for that. And it's really in limbo. It's lost to us, but it's not lost to our hearts. What is lost to us is Astroworld across the way. That's the one that when I would talk about this book, immediately people just mentioned Astroworld and the Oilers, because Astroworld went from that whole part of the Astro Domain complex with the Astrodome, and you had the park, and there was a hotel and some other things. Now it's just where we park during the rodeo, which is appreciated, but since nothing replaced it, and they really didn't even make that much money off it or put the land to that great use, I think that really hurt a lot of Houstonians, especially kind of my generation. But yeah, the Astrodome, every once in a while a plan will flare up and you'll think, oh, that sounds like a really cool thing to do with it. But there hasn't been a lot of momentum, that I've seen. So hopefully it stays with us. It's definitely a landmark.
As we wrap up here, I'll note a few others that listeners have identified. One wanted to talk about Foley's Department Store. Betsy talks about the Continental Zydeco Ballroom on the near north side as a great cross-cultural treasure. And Yasmin notes there was a huge Toys R Us on Westheimer for years and years. Yasmin says, I spent so many years when my kids were young, hours at that Toys R Us, and I'm sad that the new generation of young moms don't get to go and idle away their hours there and get everything they need for their kids.
Oh, I remember that place. It was awesome. It was right next to a Barnes & Noble that's now closed. It's become a gun store, which is really weird because I did a signing there once.
Speaking of, Dylan Powell will be at Cactus Music on December 6th, Good on Paper Books in the Heights on December 11th, and at the Houston Book Warehouse on December 13th. He is the author of Lost Treasures of Houston. Dylan, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
And still to come, we take you to a celebration of rocks and gems and minerals. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Tonight at 6:30.
Support comes from Alley Theater with A Christmas Carol presented by UT Health Houston. The story of Ebenezer Scrooge and his ghostly encounters with Christmas past, present, and future. Now through December 28th. alleytheater.org.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is made possible in part by Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer, and with gifts from listeners like you.
Since the middle of the last century, Houston area scientists, collectors, and curiosity seekers have gathered to celebrate the craft and history of rocks. Well, okay, not only rocks. I speak of the Houston Geological Society's annual Gem, Mineral, Jewelry, and Fossil Show. Houston Matters producer Brenda Valdivia takes us to this year's edition, where Chairman Scott Singleton explains how and why interest grew in rocks, gems, and minerals here in the years after World War II.
People came back from the war. They were interested in lapidary, the definition of lapidary, that's cutting and polishing of rocks, and also minerals. We have minerals there, we have paleo there. We also have faceting, where you facet gemstones, create gemstones that you put in rings and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, people get together and they have those interests, and so they formed a club. And then eventually, after a few years, people say, we ought to have a show. And then the show starts. So that's the way it started in the late 40s.
Let's say I want to start exploring minerals. Where can I take it to be studied, or at least get a couple of answers?
Okay, so that's actually something that we do. We are a 501c3. Our mandate by the state of Texas is education. So we educate adults in having classes where they learn to do whatever. They learn to facet stones, they learn to make jewelry. We also have youth education, and we have schools come in. We tell the general public, we say, if you have any specimens of any kind, come to our annual show, bring those specimens, and then ask them, and they identify it for you. It's identification services.
Minerals is a big business, especially when it comes to gems and jewelries. People think of diamonds and rubies and things like that. But are there other minerals that have a value that would be surprising to the public?
Yes, there are. Each of our special interest sections have high-priced materials. If you talk paleo, dino bone is actually common. Collecting sites, mostly in the western U.S., lots of dino bone. I have dino bone. But you get some full, like femurs or whatever, these things are pricey. These are really pricey, so that's high priced. Minerals, yes. Gemstones that can be faceted and are used for jewelry. Yes, those are expensive. Minerals, you get minerals that are every bit as high priced. Rarity and beauty, that's the two things. Does it look good? Is it a great looking specimen with crystals and all that kind of stuff? And the colors, that's one, and also is it rare? There are mineral dealers who deal in only high-priced minerals. It's exclusive people who will buy those. Can you imagine paying $10,000 for a mineral? No, I cannot. But people do that.
My name is Jessica Bamford. This is my first year with the Houston Gem and Mineral Society. I got this very big interest in lapidary. I wanted to learn how to make gems and stones, and I started to do some research. The more I looked into it, the more it seemed like a really fun thing to do. Houston is one of the very few places in the country that can actually teach you how to do lapidary. So it's a very advantageous thing to be able to join. And they have all sorts of things at the clubhouse, a very extensive library of different geologic areas of interest to what gems you can find in different countries or locally around the United States. And on top of that, the equipment to make your own gems. So lapidary not only includes the polishing aspect, but also the grinding and converting into shape. What we call a cabbing machine, which helps to turn stones into cabochons. And faceting machines to learn how to facet gems as well. So the ones that look like your typical diamond shape.
These are beautiful. It's like looking at a rainbow made out of stones, pyrite and copper, quartz. Is there a particular stone that captured, or mineral that captured your attention before you started getting into this?
Some of my favorite stones, of course, include opals and fluorites. Blue-green fluorite is incredibly beautiful when it is faceted, turned into a gem. But what's really drawn my attention these days is actually the humble agate. I read a book from the library at the clubhouse about how they form and the varying colors and formations, plus they're rather cheap and cool to work with when you're first getting started. I've just fallen in love with them. There's so many different kinds and varieties and colors, so I never feel bored with doing the same thing over and over. So they all have some character to them, and I love to showcase what they can do when I polish them up.
My name is Al Robb, and I'm part of the Paleo section. I'm actually the board member representative for the Paleo section. This is our touch fossil collection that we take to schools and use it to show and let the students, they can touch everything on the table, which is unusual for the show because often we don't want the kids to touch everything, right? But this is all about education and having the kids learn about the fossils. For something to be fossilized, it's been replaced by minerals. So most fossils are turned to stone. Some fossils, though, are traces, so they're not the actual animal, but they're the impression of the animal or a trace like a footprint that it left in the rock.
Which is your particular favorite piece?
Some of my favorites are the trilobites, which are an extinct crustacean, sort of related to a crab. And this is one of our oldest fossils. This is a Cambrian fossil, which is almost 600 million years old. So each thing we have on the table here is designed to teach some kind of lesson to the students. So this is another one that we have, which we're at a show, and you go inside, you see all the dealers, and they're selling all their stuff. This is a fossil that we like to talk about. So this is a composite mosasaur jaw. So a mosasaur is a big sea reptile that lived during the time of the dinosaurs. It's not a dinosaur. Actually, the mosasaurs were featured in the last 2 Jurassic Park movies. The mosasaur in the second to last, he's jumped out of the water real high and stuff. So anyway, they're really cool creatures. But this fossil is from Morocco, and it's unique because the teeth are real fossils and the bone of the jaw is real bone, but this is a fake, right? This is a fraud, and the reason we like to talk about this is the fossils are real, but they've composited it into this specimen to make it more valuable to sell. And so the message here is you have to be careful when you come to these shows because many of the fossils are modified or faked a little bit to make them more valuable for sale. And so you have to be really careful. And honestly, a lot of us in paleontology, we like to go out and collect our own stuff. So we know for sure where it came from and that it's authentic, right?
Speaking of the economics of fossil collection, how do you deal with the black market itself? How do you make sure, beyond just collecting your own, that the way it's obtained is ethical, that it's safe, that, is that even a possibility, or is only mining your own?
That's a really great question, and that's a big issue in our science right now. Because of the value of some of the fossils and because of the internet and the perceived value of the fossils, people are going onto other people's property and stealing the fossils so they can sell. There is a lot of unethical things going on in the science, so it is an issue. And clubs like ours, we try to not police that, but we try to educate people in the facts so that people are kind of aware and they do the right thing.
I'm Eddie Harmon, and my booth is Eddie's Rocks and Relics. My major was in geology, and I took my parents to their first show back in the early 90s and got them hooked on rocks. Mother told my dad, if you want to have something to do with your son, you need to start selling rocks. So they started selling rocks, which is what I wanted to do. I ended up going to the real world, working for somebody else for several years, and then later on my dad asked, is this something you'd like to do? And I said yes, and so he helped me get into the fossil business, and now I have my own booth, and Dad's got his own booth, and we're still selling rocks together. So
That's so sweet. Is your dad here?
he is. He's actually over with Stone Crystals today. They do the geodes over there and have minerals for sale.
What's your favorite piece here today?
This is a trilobite that I've been in search of for many years. He's only about 1/4 of an inch long as a fossil, but he actually has all of his soft parts preserved, his legs and his antenna, which is very rare to find in trilobites because the soft parts are almost never preserved.
This piece is so small and so subtle compared to everything else you have in this table. I mean, there are pieces that are 3 feet tall, there's some that are beautifully iridescent, and yet your pride and joy is this tiny little, I mean, it's the size of a nickel. Why this piece in particular?
Because of the preservation. Until they started discovering the trilobites with the soft parts, we didn't know what their modus operandi was for movement and everything else. They were able to figure out they have a gill and a leg on each segment. They had antennas like bugs of today, and most of the time we only find their hard parts, and we'll find the attachments and stuff like that on the backs of the trilobites out of Utah, but we don't find their soft parts. When we found these in New York, it actually showed us how this animal looked in life.
My name is Nancy English, and I'm the volunteer coordinator for Houston Gem and Mineral Society.
So the event has been going for over 70 years. How long have you been coordinating this, and how big is the volunteer group that it takes to put it all together?
I've been doing it for 12 years. We filled 283 volunteer positions over the 3 days. And fortunately, some people volunteer more than once, so I don't have 283 volunteers. We have 2 shifts a day.
How did you get started with volunteering for this organization?
I had a friend that had a bucket of rocks in his kitchen, and I said, what are you going to do with those? And he said, oh, someday I'm going to join the Houston Gem and Mineral Society and make jewelry out of these. And I said, I want to do that. So we went to a general meeting and laughed. It was better than it was better than reality TV. They were fighting over something, and decided that we had to be part of this group.
Is there a particular mineral you like working with most when it comes to making your own jewelry?
I like crazy lace. I love amethyst. Purple is my signature color.
I'm also a Pisces, so I get it.
I've worked with Larimar and Thunder Egg, for instance, and inside it looks like a moon over water, and because of the different ways the minerals have changed the rock. And so there's just a lot of ways to make jewelry that's really interesting and fun to look at, and definitely unique. Every single thing you make is unique.
A moon over water, that's so romantic. Is there a particular mineral or rock that you found that you don't even want to change, you just have it in your collection because you love it so much?
Yeah, I found one that I wanted to make something out of something red, and so I bought a slab, which is about a 3/4 inch thick, maybe a 1/4 inch thick, 1/2 inch, and there's a boot in it, a cowboy boot. Every time I try and think about how to cut it, I just can't, because if I make a piece of jewelry out of it, it has to be smaller than the boot, so I just get it out and look at it every once in a while, pet it a little bit and say, what am I going to do with this?
What a good boot.
Yeah, right.
That's Nancy English, volunteer coordinator for the Gem and Mineral Society. She and other mineral and fossil enthusiasts spoke with Houston Matters producer Brenda Valdivia. And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Meanshow Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, just in time for holiday travel, we welcome your questions about the rules of the road for Sergeant Stephen Woodard from the Texas Department of Public Safety. Send your questions about traffic laws that may have grown a little fuzzy in your mind since your driver's ed days. You can send them to talk@houstonmatters.org or call in and join us live on the air during tomorrow's show. Also Friday, a retired Secret Service agent's memories of the day before JFK was killed in Dallas. The president spent that day here in Houston. Plus, this week's non-expert panel weighs in on intrigues in the news, on the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.